Good morning. Happy Monday. We're getting close to Christmas, so I hope everybody who's taken the week off for Christmas enjoys it. I don't know if I'm going to make another video before Christmas, so I'm going to say Merry Christmas. And let's talk about what I think is the least interesting thing, but what I get comments on every time I make a Decasto video. People are always like, when are the courts going to stop Chile from doing this? When are the courts going to declare him a vexatious litigant? Well, I've covered this multiple times. But for the slow boys in the class, you have a right, you have a constitutional right under the U.S. Constitution, most likely under your state's constitution as well, to access the courts. You have the right to petition the government for redress of grievance. This is the First Amendment. You have the right to go to court. And rights aren't taken away from you without due process, without notice and an opportunity to be heard. And courts are very reluctant to take that right away from you. They will do it on certain occasions, but you really have to be egregious. You really have to be abusing the system. Now, you may think that Chile's abusing the system, and that's your opinion. Great. Reasonable minds can reasonably differ. I'm not saying that I don't think he's abusing the system. I don't think he brings many lawsuits with any merit at all. But there's a difference. So, first of all, the court, generally speaking, isn't going to sua sponte on its own say, oh, Chile's a vexatious litigant. That's the first thing. The times where you see that is where the same litigant is filing multiple motions in the same district. So, like if Chile was filing all of his, all of his complaints. If he was filing all of his complaints in the Western District of California, and the Western District of California judges see him in there over and over and over and over and over again, especially if he's suing the same people over and over and over again, that's a situation where a court might sua sponte do something about it and say, oh, you're a vexatious litigant, so we're going to hamper your ability to do this. And generally speaking, the way they do that is for pro se litigants, pro per litigants, they require you to have an attorney. So an attorney has to file for you. They say you can't file pro per anymore. You have to get an attorney. Because attorneys have more on the line if they're filing frivolous or vexatious or harassing lawsuits. They've got more on the line. They can get disbarred, whereas you can never lose your pro se status. I mean, you could always be a pro se litigant, essentially. So that's one of the things they might do. If you are a pro se litigant, maybe you have to motion the court for permission to file a lawsuit, i.e. petition the court, say, hey, I want to file this lawsuit. Attach the lawsuit to your pleading. The court will review it and say, yes, you can file it, or no, you can't. And all they're looking for is a colorable claim, a claim that, if true, would entitle you to whatever relief you're requesting, damages, injunctive relief, whatever that is. The more common way that a party gets declared a vexatious litigant is if they're suing, again, the same person or persons over and over and over and over again. And then those persons file in one of those cases a motion to have that particular person declared a vexatious litigant. And the court won't look into it on its own. The court will rely on the motion and supporting papers and the opposition to the motion and those supporting papers to determine whether or not the court should declare Chile or whoever the person is to be a vexatious litigant. Now, one other thing to consider is that each jurisdiction, each court system is separate. So if Chile gets found to be a vexatious litigant in, let's say, the Western District of the Ninth Circuit, that doesn't necessarily mean that any other district in the California district courts, the California portion of the Ninth Circuit, or any other circuit, or California state courts, or any other state courts, are going to recognize him as a vexatious litigant. It's somewhat insular. Like it doesn't. Now other districts in the Ninth Circuit might recognize it, might not. I've never run into that situation, but I don't believe they have to. Although a litigant, like if Chile gets found to be a vexatious litigant in the Western District of California federal court, if he files in the Eastern District of California, someone might, bring that and say, hey, I wanted to be found a vexatious litigant in this district as well, based on the findings by the Western District. So, it's not a perfect solution, but that's kind of, generally speaking, the way it goes. But Chile isn't anywhere near that. And I understand that for those of you who consume content about Chile's lawsuit, you might think, well, he's filing all these trash complaints all over the country, and it's a problem. And again, you might think it's a problem, but each court system is different, and each court system only operates under the information that's in front of it. They're not going to go around and watch YouTube channels to find out who else Chile has sued. They're not going to go doing requests from all the other courts around the country to find out about this. They're not going to look into it on their own. They're going to require a motion by one of the people to say that there is an issue in this particular district. And because he's filed all over, it is unlikely that any court is going to find there to be an issue, because, if, let's say Abrams files in a vexatious litigant motion in, Massachusetts, the District of Massachusetts federal court, the court isn't really going to care that Chile's filed federal lawsuits in Nevada and Arizona and California and Ohio. That's not relevant to it. It's not relevant to those proceedings. So he's got a long way to go before he does anything where, in my opinion, a court's going to find him to be a vexatious litigant and essentially take away his right, his constitutionally protected right, to file complaints in various courts around the country. We're a long way from that. Now, what I find to be much more interesting is I watched a monologue by Tucker Carlson. Now, you might not like Tucker Carlson. I'm not endorsing him, and I actually disagree with his prescription. He was talking about Ilhan Omar and the Somalians and how they have a tribal identity and how they're not assimilating into America and adopting American culture, and that, as a nation, we should essentially force people to comply with what he believes is American culture and American ideals, and reject tribalism and reject identity politics. And that has got to be the most absurd thing I've ever heard. First of all, I don't know of a time in American politics where there hasn't been identity politics, where there hasn't been a disagreement between the left and the right, or whatever kind of division you want, about what American culture is, about what American ideals are, about what the best prescriptions for America are. And this is like, so what is American culture? What is, American, an American creed? Is it the Constitution, the same Constitution that has the First Amendment that protects freedom of speech, which inherently must protect freedom of ideas? You can't have speech if you don't have ideas. Freedom of speech is freedom of ideas. All politics is identity politics. You can't have politics without identity politics. Your average voter is going to say, I have these two candidates in front of me. Which one best represents me and what I want and what I think is best for America, or best for me, or best for my state, or best for my family, or best for my community, or best for my tribe? That is all politics. That is the way democracies and republics and whatever we have, this mishmash of Republican and democracy that we have, whatever it is, when you're allowing a person to vote, they have the right to vote their conscience. They have the right to vote for what's best for them. They have the right to think and identify what is best for me. And what is best for me might be what is best for my tribe, what is best for my community, what's best for my family, what's best for me. And I have the right as a voter to place what's best for me or my tribe over what is best for the nation. It's an absurd prescription that historically has never worked. For the past 60 years, there's been a massive push to cut down white nationalism. Massive push. Like, people talk about the KKK, and like the KKK has been essentially run into non-existence, irrelevance by the feds. I mean, there's been a massive push against white nationalism. And what do we see on the rise? 60 years later, 60 years of indoctrination from school through, from kindergarten, preschool, all the way up through college. And employers have been pushing against white identity politics. People on the left and the right, politicians, have pushed against white identity politics. Being called a white nationalist has for decades, if not 60 years, been a slur against whoever's getting called a white nationalist. And yet here we are, 60 years later, with white nationalism on the rise, with tribal identity on the rise, with identity politics on the rise. And like Tucker's prescriptions, well, we should all just not do that. Like, I'm not advocating for white nationalism. I'm not advocating for identity politics, but that is what is. That is what will be. There's no getting around it. The Somalians are going to vote in the best interest of that individual first, their community, their tribe, the nation that they identify as their national identity, i.e. Somalia. Filipinos are going to vote Filipino. I mean, look at voting records. You know, they have all these breakdowns, you know. Blacks vote Democrat. They vote in the best interest of black people, of themselves, of their community, of their tribe. Mexicans vote Democrat. They vote in the best interest of themselves, their community, their tribe. Asians vote Democrat in the best interest of themselves, their identity, and their tribes. White Americans, males at least, vote overwhelmingly Republican in their best interest, in the interest of their community, in the interest of their tribe. All politics is identity politics. Empires run into problems when you get too many cultures and when you don't have a dominant culture. There's like a breaking point of where you have too many competing interests. And as long as there's one ascendant culture, nation, and by nation I mean like ethnic group that can dominate the rest of the empire through force, then the empire lasts. But when the other identities, the other ethnicities, the other national, nation groups in the empire, when they start achieving parity or getting, the closer they get to parity, the more the system tends to crumble. And when they surpass, when the empire's originating culture, ethnicity is no longer the strongest, where it's no longer able to dominate the other groups because they've just grown too powerful through numbers, through political power, through military power, whatever it is, the empire crumbles. I mean, call me a negative Nancy. I'm an attorney, obviously. So, my job is to look at like the worst case scenarios in legal issues, and politics is kind of legal. We've got a huge problem. We've got, in my opinion, I'm not saying that any culture or race or anything is better than any other, but we're getting to this mishmash of where we don't have a dominant one anymore, and it's going to fracture. In my opinion, I'm a negative Nancy. You might have a different opinion. It's going to fracture. There is no unifying religion. There's no unifying national identity. There's no unifying culture. I mean, the Western kind of American culture that developed in this country has just been smashed down. Christianity has just been smashed down. Now we have, like for Christmas, for example, instead of being a religious holiday that was flavored by the kind of Christmas stories of the origin country of the immigrants who came here from primarily the UK and to a lesser extent Germany is, I think, like the number 2, where we have that kind of cultural and religious celebration. Now we have a completely corporate celebration with some guy named Santa Claus in a red and white outfit that is oddly reminiscent of Coca-Cola colors, where the whole purpose of it is to spend as much money as possible, go into debt as much as possible, so that you could drive up corporate numbers. I mean, it's just, I think America is on the decline, and it's going to have to do some serious reorganization. There's going to be some huge societal shakeup. But I don't think creedal Americans is the solution. I don't think telling people to vote non-identity politics is the solution. That's nonsense. It's probably the dumbest thing I've ever heard Tucker Carlson say, and he said a lot of dumb shit. So anyway, that's my take on it. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.